If I had to start an Airbnb business from scratch in 2025, I'll make my first $10,000 a month in 60 days instead of the 6 months that it actually took me. I'm Jordan. I started my short-term rental business at 20 years old, and today I manage over 30 properties, generating $50,000 plus in profit every month, which is impressive, but not as impressive as the 70 students I've helped make over $10,000 a month with Airbnb arbitrage in the last 6 months. In this video, I'm gonna do something different from every single Airbnb video you've ever watched. I'm gonna give you the exact process, everything A to Z, for free. And by the very end, you'll be more than capable of starting your own Airbnb business. So you probably clicked on this video wondering what exactly is Airbnb arbitrage and how does it work? Let me break it down. Airbnb arbitrage is rental arbitrage for short-term rentals. Basically, you rent a property on a standard long-term lease, you furnish it professionally, and then list it on Airbnb and other short-term rental platforms with the landlord or agent's permission. And here's how the money works. You pay the landlord their monthly rent, guests pay you their nightly rates through Airbnb, and you keep all the profit after covering all expenses. The key is finding properties where the short-term rental income significantly exceeds the long-term rental cost. That is where your profit comes from. So why don't landlords just do this themselves? That's simple. Imagine your boss is doing your job. Most landlords just don't have the time, the skills, or desire to manage short-term rentals. They prefer guaranteed monthly income without dealing with guest communications, cleaning coordination, or property optimization. And that's where we come in. We're not just renting their property, we're providing a premium service that guarantees their rent, maintains their property better than traditional tenants, and handles everything professionally. This isn't taking advantage of landlords, it's about creating a win-win partnership where they get better outcomes than traditional renting. When I first started, I made mistakes that cost me months of progress. I approached landlords like I was asking for a favor instead of offering a business solution. I didn't understand how to analyze markets properly. I wasted money on furniture that didn't photograph well. But here's what I learned. Success in this business comes down to positioning yourself as a professional operator, understanding what makes properties profitable, and building systems that actually work. If I was starting over today, I'll skip all the trial and error and follow the exact framework I'm about to share with you. It's the same system my students like Omar used to build his business to 10 properties, generating him $30,000 a month in only his first 4 months. Step 1, market selection and analysis. The first step is choosing where to operate. This determines everything else. I focus on markets within driving distance of where I live, especially when starting out. Because when you're launching your first couple of properties, there's always going to be issues that arise. A guest locks themselves out, the cleaner cancels, the Wi-Fi stops working. You want to be able to jump in and handle it quickly while you're building your local team and systems. The key is understanding supply and demand in your target area, but not oversaturation of existing properties. Now, when I'm choosing a market, I'm not guessing. I use a tool called AirDNA to scope out areas and get a real read on what's actually working. AirDNA basically allows you to look at how much comparable listings are earning, how many nights per month they're booked, and whether those listings have real traction, which I measure based on review count and consistency. Let's say I'm looking at inner Melbourne. I'll pull up a few 1 and 2 bedroom properties in, say, CBD, South Bank, or Richmond, areas with steady business and leisure demand. I'm looking for listings that are doing well, not just one-offs, but a pattern of similar properties, charging solid nightly rates and staying booked. Once I get an average nightly rate and occupancy from AirDNA, I multiply them together to get a rough daily revenue figure. In the short-term rental industry, this number is also known as RevPAR, or revenue per available room. RevPAR is one of the most important metrics to understand because it tells you on average how much a property is actually earning each day it's available. Not just what it's listed for and not just how often it's booked, but the true income performance. Let's say a property charges $250 a night, but it's only booked for 50% of the time. That's $125 RevPAR. But another property charges $180 a night and booked 80% of the time. That's $144 RevPAR. So while the first one looks more premium, the second one is actually making more money. And that's why RevPAR matters, because it cuts through the vanity numbers and shows you what's actually performing. I use this to filter out hype listings and focus only on properties with proven income potential. Now, once I've got that RevPAR figure, I go back and compare it to the daily rental cost. Again, just take the weekly long-term rent and divide it by 7. If that rent is $100 a day and the RevPAR is $200 a day, that's a 2x return. And that's where things start to look attractive. If it's below 2x, I usually walk. And this is exactly how I know, without guessing, whether a property is likely to generate profit. And this is the exact process that my team uses before taking on any new unit. It takes maybe 15 to 20 minutes, but once you get the hang of it, it saves you from wasting months chasing low performing properties that never had a chance in the first place. That's why this step is everything. If you mess up market and property selection, the rest of your business business is built on shaky ground. But if you get this right, everything downstream becomes way easier. But it's not just about the numbers, it's also about the man drivers. Is there a hospital nearby? A university? Is it close to public transport? Are there consistent reasons for people to stay there year round and not just on weekends? The goal here is to find a suburb where you're not competing with 100 other hosts for the same guests, but where demand is real, proven, and consistent. And when you can find that sweet spot, everything that follows gets easier. Step 2, property identification and analysis. Once you've identified your target market, you need to find specific properties that will actually generate profit. There's this huge misconception I see all the time with beginners, that only certain property types work on Airbnb. Like people think it has to be a 1-bedroom apartment in the CBD, or only luxury homes work. It's just not true. Across our own portfolio, we have townhouses, apartments, single-story homes, 1-bedders, 2-bedders, 3-bedders, and 4-bedroom houses. And all of them perform. The reality is almost any property type can work as a short-term rental. But, and this is important, not every property works equally well in every location. For example, 1-bedroom apartments in Melbourne CBD often underperform compared to 2-bedrooms and 3-bedroom apartments. Why? Because you're competing against hundreds of hotels that offer more amenities, better service, and often even cheaper rates. So while the property type matters, what matters more is whether it's aligned with what the guest in that area is looking for. Now, when I'm looking at a specific property, I'm always asking, what is the wow factor? What is going to stop someone from scrolling past my listing on Airbnb? Is there a crazy view, a rooftop pool, building amenities like a gym, sauna, or cinema? Or is it just the apartment itself? Is it super clean, modern, minimal, well designed? There needs to be something that makes your listing stand out. Because on Airbnb, you're not just selling a place to sleep, you're selling an experience. And on that, I never look at a floor plan or realestate.com listing without visualizing the furniture layout in my head. Can I already imagine the hero photo? Will that main living space actually look good in pictures? Because the hero photo, that's your hook. That's what gets people to click. If the layout is awkward, the space is narrow, or it just doesn't frame well on camera, it doesn't matter how nice the kitchen is. Your listing is going to struggle. The property has to be photogenic. It's as simple as that. So once I know it's going to present well, I jump straight back into the numbers. Okay, so I'm looking at this 2-bedroom apartment in South Bank right now. What we're going to do is filter by 2 bedrooms on AirDNA, and we're going to zoom in on the map view where the subject property is located and calculate the RevPAR for at least 5 comparable properties nearby using AirDNA. And we have to make sure the listings that we choose as comparables have at least 30 reviews. Now, after we put all of their average daily rates or ADRs into a spreadsheet and their occupancies, we can then calculate the RevPARs for each individual listing, and then I can compare it to the rent that I'll be paying to the landlord. So to do this, we divide the RevPAR by the daily rent, and now you've got your revenue efficiency ratio. If this ratio is 2.0 or more, the property is likely to be profitable. If it's lower than that, then I'm probably walking. This step is crucial. You can't get emotionally attached to a deal because the apartment feels nice. The numbers always tell the truth. Now let's talk red flags. And there's a few. If you're looking at an apartment in a strata managed building, you need to know if the OC, that is the owner's corporation, or building manager is anti-short stay. Because I've seen people get a lease approval from a landlord, furnish the whole place, then get shut down by the building 2 weeks in. It's a waste of time, waste of money, and stress. Always check that first. If the building or property is old and neglected, like stained carpets, outdated appliances, broken fly screens, yellow walls, don't try and fix it up with styling. That stuff will lead to constant guest complaints, refund requests, and just poor reviews. You're not trying to flip a renovation project. You're trying to run a hospitality business. Also, watch out for weird layouts, like bedrooms with no windows, bathrooms tucked behind kitchen, or properties with no dining area. These things might pass as a long-term tenant sniff test, but they'll get picked apart in guest reviews. And finally, be careful with properties that are on super busy roads, have poor soundproofing, or back onto construction sites. You think it's fine, and then your reviews get smashed for noise complaints. Bottom line, when you're identifying properties, you're not just finding a rental, you're selecting a product. Something that has to look good, function well, perform financially, and deliver a consistent experience for every guest who walks in the door. Ultimately, the goal is only to approach landlords about properties you're confident will be profitable. This professional approach gets much better results than just randomly contacting property owners. Step 3, professional landlord approach. This is where most people fail. They approach landlords like amateurs instead of presenting a real business opportunity. And that one mistake is why they get ignored, ghosted, or rejected. But here's the truth, you're not asking for permission to do Airbnb. You're offering a professional hands-off solution that guarantees rent, keeps the place in a better condition than a regular tenant, and takes all the headaches off their plate. That's a win for them. But if you come across like you're asking for a favor instead of bringing a business deal to the table, you've already lost. Let me break down exactly how I approach landlords and lock in deals. When I reach out, I keep the first call short and casual. Real estate agents don't want to pitch. They want to know if this is worth passing to the owner. So this is exactly what I'll say on the call. Hey, I'm calling about the property you've had listed at property address. Is it still available? I run a short stay business and we're looking to lease more properties in that area. We currently operate X properties in X suburbs. Is this something you've discussed with the owner before? That's all you need to start the conversation. If they're curious, I'll explain a little bit further. We rent properties long term, 12, 18, 24 months, and use them for short stays. We manage the property professionally, handle all guest communication, maintenance, and cleaning. And we treat the place better than most tenants. If they hit you with common objections, here's how to handle them. Airbnb guests will throw parties and damage the place. Look, I totally understand your concern, but we have strict guest verification and vetting procedures in place. Every guest must submit government issued ID, pass background checks, and meet criteria based on their Airbnb profile, reviews, and history. And if they do damage the place, we're fully insured and covered through our hosting platform. Plus, we take a security deposit and have a dedicated support team that handles all guest issues instantly. The landlord prefers long-term tenants. Totally fair, most landlords do. But the key difference here is we're not casual guests coming and going with no structure. We're actually the ideal long-term tenant. We sign a standard long-term lease, guarantee rent on time every month, and we treat the property like a business asset, not a crash pad. You get the same security and consistency that you'll get with a regular tenant, but with professional cleaning every few days and maintenance covered up to $300. And because this is a business for us, if the property is performing well, we're highly likely to renew, meaning you avoid tenant turnover, vacancy, and the hassle of finding new renters year after year. Why wouldn't a landlord just do this themselves? Most landlords don't want another job. Managing an Airbnb is a full-time business. Guest communication, cleaning turnover, dynamic pricing, reviews, marketing, maintenance, emergencies at 2 a.m. It's not passive. I'm not just renting the place, I'm running a whole hospitality operation. You get guaranteed rent, zero vacancies, better property upkeep, and none of the work. Now, if it's a maybe or I'll check with the owner, I'll always set a follow-up. No worries, I'll shoot you a text right after this call. Can you let me know by tomorrow? And then I send this text template. Hey, thanks for the chat earlier. As mentioned, I run a short stay company called, and then obviously your company name. We lease properties on a long-term basis for Airbnb use, fully manage them, and currently operate X properties in X suburbs. Here's our website. Would love to hear what the owner thinks. And if you got other properties that could suit this, I'm all ears. Thank you, and then put your name at the end. Now here's where most people drop the ball. They don't follow up. Your first property is always the hardest, and it usually doesn't come from the first call, or even the second, or even the fifth. I followed up relentlessly. I kept the volume high and never got attached to one listing. If an agent says no, cool, on to the next. You don't need them, but someone out there needs you. Keep your options open and your outreach wide. The numbers work in your favor if you don't quit. But it's not just about the calls, the real magic happens in person. Go to every inspection you can. It doesn't matter if the place is perfect, you're there to meet the agent, shake their hand, and build rapport. Ask how long they've been a property manager. Ask what else they got listed right now on the market. Hell, ask what sport they play or what coffee they drink. The more human you are, the more they want to work with you. You see, real estate is a relationship game. We took one of the agents we work with now out for drinks the first time we met him. And today, he's not just someone we do business with, he's a close friend who sends us listings before they even hit the market. And that's the power of real relationships. Here's the part that no one tells you. Most of my 30 plus properties came from just 5 to 6 agents. They keep coming back to me because they know my company takes care of their properties. They know we pay on time and cause zero headaches. They vouch for me because I built trust over time. In this world, your network is your net worth. The more agents and property managers you know and genuinely get along with, the easier it becomes to scale. These days, I can secure a new property with a few phone calls, just by tapping into the network that I've built. So if you're struggling with your first deal, ask yourself, are you really building real relationships? Are you showing up to inspections and meeting agents face to face? Are you following up and keeping the volume high? Because this is a long game, and when you play it properly, the leverage starts to stack. The key insight from my experience is that you're not asking for permission to do Airbnb. You're offering a professional property management service that guarantees income and maintains their asset better than traditional tenants. That is the way that you should be positioning yourself. You are the ideal tenant. Step 4. Set up your property. Okay, so once you've secured the lease, the next step is transforming the property into a profitable short-term rental. Now, this is where people often get stuck. They either overspend trying to make it look like a luxury hotel, or they underdeliver and end up with a listing that just doesn't convert. The key is this: you don't need luxury, you need clean, functional, and aesthetic. When we set up a property, I always start with the essentials: bed, couch, dining, kitchen, and laundry. And I'm also not afraid to go secondhand with the big stuff. In fact, Facebook Marketplace is a gold mine if you know what to look for. I've furnished plenty of properties with secondhand TVs, couches, fridges, washers, and dryers, all at a massive discount from retail. Just make sure to inspect everything properly. Test the appliances, check for damage, and always pick up in person if you can. When done right, you can cut your setup cost by thousands of dollars without compromising on quality. With secondhand sourcing, a smart budget range for your first property is around $5,000 to $8,000. For everything smaller, like kitchenware, cutlery, lamps, towels, and even basic decor, Kmart is your best friend. You can literally furnish an entire property off of Kmart and keep it looking sharp while staying on the budget. Now, once the basics are in, you want to add just enough personality to make the space pop. That's where styling comes in. Use throw cushions, fake plants, mirrors, blankets, little things that add warmth and texture. And here's a design tip that I swear by. If you introduce an accent color, repeat it somewhere else in the same space. It makes everything feel more cohesive and intentional rather than random. You also want to think about photography while you're setting up. The hero photo, which is usually the living room, is the first thing people see when scrolling. So if the layout is weird or the angle looks awkward, that could literally kill your booking rate. And I always make sure that I can visualize how the listing will photograph before I commit to any furniture layout. Here are a few practical setup tips. When you get approved for a lease, try to start about a week later. This gives you time to gather all your furniture and supplies so that you can move in fast and efficiently. Ask the agent or owner if you can get access to the keys a day or two early. Some will allow it, and that head start can save you a ton of time. If the building has a lift, make sure you book it in advance. Most high-rise apartments require lift bookings for move-in and furniture delivery. And don't forget to connect your utilities: electricity, water, internet, and gas. You can go direct to providers like AGL, Origin, or Aussie Broadband, or you can use a free service like MyConnect who handle the whole process for you and take a cut from the providers. The final step is getting guests ready, which means making sure the space isn't just furnished, but also stocked with everything a guest expects. Essentials include high-speed Wi-Fi, clean linen and towels, shampoo, conditioner, and body wash, tea, coffee, sugar, and a fully equipped kitchen. Utensils, pots, plates, mugs, bowls. You also should have a hairdryer, iron, vacuum, bin bags, and toilet paper. These are all standard expectations. They're not optional, but you don't need to go overboard. Coffee machine, snacks, and candles. These are nice to haves, but not requirements. Once everything is set, we always do a deep clean before going live. We check every detail and make sure the guest experience feels seamless from the moment that they walk in. For us, the setup usually takes 5 to 7 days max, from the lease starting to the property being live on Airbnb. That includes furniture delivery, styling, utilities, Wi-Fi, and the final clean. Don't overcomplicate it. Your space just needs to be clean, functional, and feel good to walk into. Guests care way more about the vibe and comfort of your property rather than whether your couch was $3,000 or $300. This is how we set up 30 profitable properties, and it works whether you're spending $5K or $14K. Because it's not about how much you spend, it's about how smart and intentional you are with it. Step 5, creating your listing and getting bookings. Your listing is what converts browsers into bookings. This determines your success. You can have the best property, the best furniture, and the best location, but if your listing sucks, none of it matters. The first thing that you need to do is hire a proper photographer. Look, I know it's tempting to take out your iPhone, or even worse, let your friend who's getting into photography have a crack at it. Don't do that. This is business. Your listing photos are the face of your brand. They're the first impression that people get, and they directly influence your conversion rate. Spend the extra $300 on professional photos, and you will make it back 10 times in the long run. Better photos get more clicks, more bookings, and allows you to charge higher nightly rates. It's that simple. Now, some of the biggest real estate photography companies will quote you $500 or more for a full property shoot, and that's fine if you've got the budget. But honestly, you can find amazing freelancers for $200 to $300 who can deliver just as good results, if not better. I've had great luck with Airtasker or even just asking in local Facebook business groups. But here's the catch: you don't just hire anyone. You must look at their real estate portfolio first. Make sure they've shot short-term rentals or real estate style photos before. You don't want blurry photos, weird filters, or odd lighting that makes the space look smaller than it is. Vet them properly, ask for examples. Quality matters a lot here. After your photos, it is finally time to list your property on Airbnb. So now that you've put your listing up on Airbnb, you need to connect price labs. This is probably the most important tool I'm going to mention in this entire video, because this is exactly what controls how much money you make. Most beginners set a flat rate like $199 a night, and then they just leave it. This is a big mistake. Why? Because pricing isn't static. It changes every single day. Weekends versus weekdays, school holidays, off-peak seasons. If you're not adjusting for all of that, you're leaving thousands on the table. Price labs is what's called a dynamic pricing tool. It automatically adjusts your nightly rate based on demand, seasonality, local events, lead time, and competition. And it does this every single day, automatically, without you touching a thing. Once it's connected to your Airbnb, it will start syncing prices across your calendar. But don't just turn it on and walk away. You need to customize your base rate and strategy setting. Here's how I normally set it up. For your base price, I usually take the average RevPAR for comparable listings in that area. And then I set my base price around 10 to 15% higher to give me some room to account for discounts. For your minimum price, this is your safety net. You don't want bookings that lose you money. I set this based on my break-even point, basically covering rent, cleaning, and other costs. You also need to set up last-minute discounts to help fill the empty nights. I usually put a 10 to 20% discount in the next 7 days. You should also set a premium for far-out bookings. I usually increase pricing for bookings that are months away because those guests are locking in early and are willing to pay more for the certainty. And finally, minimum night stays. During peak seasons, I bump this up to 3 to 5 nights to maximize revenue and reduce turnover. During slow periods, I drop it to 2 nights or even 1 night to boost my occupancy. Once you dial this in, Price Labs basically becomes your revenue manager. It optimizes your income daily while you sleep. And this is what separates amateurs from professionals. You're not just hosting, you're running a real business. And pricing correctly is how you win in this game. So don't skip this. Set it up properly and check in every single week to tweak or improve. Now, once your first listing is completely live, that's a huge win. But now the real game begins. Because what separates a listing that just sits there from one that stays booked solid is the reviews. 5-star reviews are everything. They build trust. They push you up the rankings. They're the reason people will book with you instead of someone else down the street. So let's talk about how to encourage these reviews from the very first guest. First, it starts before they even walk in the door. You want to set the right expectations with your first listing. Don't overpromise or try to make it sound like a 5-star resort if it's just a simple, clean apartment. People will get disappointed when reality doesn't match the listing. And that's when the 4 stars come in. Then you focus on the check-in experience. This part is underrated. Guests are usually tired from traveling. If they're digging through vague instructions or can't get into the place easily, that frustration carries into how they feel about the whole stay. So keep your instructions simple, send them early, and make sure things like Wi-Fi and parking info are also crystal clear. And once they've checked in, I always send a quick message just to check in and show I care. Something like, hey, hope everything's all good with check-in. Let me know if you need anything at all. I'm here to help. That alone does 2 things. 1, it gives them confidence that the support is there if they need it. And 2, if something's slightly off, it gives them the chance to raise it before it turns into a really bad review. And of course, the place needs to be spotless. No shortcuts. Cleanliness is the #1 reason why people leave bad reviews. We're talking hotel level clean, no dust, no stains, and no weird smells. Check everything before the guest arrives. Not just once, but twice if you have to. Lastly, little touches go a long way. A handwritten note, a couple of mints on the pillow, even just the vibe of the space being thoughtful and calm. It doesn't need to be fancy, just intentional. People remember how a place made them feel, and that's what they write about. So if you do all these things consistently, 5-star reviews will follow. And once the 5-star reviews start rolling in, bookings do too. Step 6 is manage your operations simply. Start with communication. This is one of the biggest drivers of guest satisfaction. And it's easy to automate. You want 3 scheduled messages that are ready to go. #1 is pre-check-in. This message is sent the day before arrival with the check-in instructions, Wi-Fi, and anything they need to know. #2 is check-in follow-up. This is sent an hour or 2 after they arrive just to make sure everything is okay. #3 is checkout. This is sent the night before they leave with checkout time and instructions. Keep your replies fast and professional. Most questions that you'll get are the same. Where's the parking, or what's the Wi-Fi password, or can I check in early? So set up saved replies or use a channel manager like Hostaway to automate your responses. It saves you hours every single week. And don't wait for problems to happen. Set clear expectations up front in your listing and your welcome message. Things like noise, guest limits, or how to use certain appliances. Guests will respect your space more when the rules are clear. Next is cleaning. Your property property lives or dies by how clean it is. Find a reliable cleaner, and this is ideally someone who's done short-term rentals before. Regular domestic cleaners can work, but you need to train them on the details. Resetting the property exactly the same each time. Checking for damage or missing items. Restocking essentials like toilet paper and soap. Recreate a custom checklist and send that to our cleaner. If you can't find a reliable cleaner through referrals, try Airtasker or local Facebook groups. Book them for one test clean and see how they go. And as for maintenance, the rule of thumb is, if it's a minor issue like a light bulb or loose handle, just handle it. If it's structural or affects the landlord's asset, like plumbing or appliances they own, always let them know and get it fixed through the proper channels. On the business side, keep things simple. When you're starting out, you don't need Xero or anything fancy. Track your income and expenses in a basic spreadsheet. Rent, cleaning costs, supplies, Airbnb payout totals, and profit. That's all you need at the beginning. Using price labs, you can monitor key performance metrics like occupancy rate, average daily rate, and RevPAR. Other KPIs you should look at is profit per month and guest reviews. If bookings slow down or reviews dip, check what changed. Did your photos get outdated? Are your prices too high for the season? Have your competitors improved their listings? You'll want to adjust pricing over time using price labs. The goal here isn't to build a complicated machine. It's to keep your operation tight and profitable without making this a second full-time job. Get your systems dialed in early and this business becomes incredibly scalable. Because once your operations run smooth, adding your next property becomes 10 times easier. Now let me be completely honest about what this business actually requires. For your time investment for the first month, about 15 to 20 hours setting up and learning. For ongoing, 3 to 5 hours per week per property for management. The most time consuming part is your initial setup and finding your first property. Here are the financial requirements for setting up your first property. Your property setup costs. That includes furniture and supplies. Your first month's rent and your security deposit or your bond. And then you will also need an operating buffer for slow seasons. Here are some common beginner challenges. Getting your first landlord to say yes. Learning to price correctly. Managing your first difficult guest. Balancing guest satisfaction with profitability. Here's a realistic timeline. Month 1, you find and secure a property. Month 2, you set up and launch. Month 3 and onwards, you optimize and consider scaling. Success comes from treating this seriously but not overcomplicating it initially. So that's everything you need to know to start Airbnb arbitrage in 2025 as a complete beginner. I'm so confident in this information because this comes from managing 30 plus properties and teaching students who get real results, not theory from someone with no actual experience. I want to get real for a second. Most people will watch this, take notes, then spend weeks researching instead of taking action. Please don't let that be you, because you could genuinely change your life if you finally followed through on the things you said you're going to do. Now, I know some of you are thinking, this sounds great, Jordan, but I want to make sure I don't mess this up. And I get it. That's exactly why I work directly with a small group of students to guide them through this entire process, from finding their first property to getting profitable fast. The link is in the description if you're interested in that. But whether you do this alone or get help, the most important thing is that you actually start. Pick one step and begin this week. Whether it's researching your local market or reaching out to get your first property, consistent action is what separates successful operators from dreamers. Your first profitable property is closer than you think if you start taking action today.